basically the world's changed. In the old days, if you just go back 150 years, 200 years, wrestling tournaments always took 2 days, sometimes 3 or 4. The longest of the tournaments could even take a week to find the standing men to contest the semi-finals on the Saturday and the finals on the Sunday. And you're talking of crowds between 5 and 10,000. When we see you shake hands, we will start the clock. Cornish wrestling is unique to Cornwall now. The Celtic wrestling is unique to the British Isles. What you've got to remember is where it comes from is the ancient Britons. We know the Celts were doing this before any Roman invasions or any other country came here. The ancient Britons done it. It was their pastime. So it makes this the oldest sport in the British Isles. If you dug up a Celtic sword in your garden that was 2,500 years old, they'd be amazed, it'd be on the news. But to think we stand here today teaching the same thing in the same way is an amazing fact. Grappling is the first thing sibling rivalry comes up with for growing up human beings or animals. They will both grapple with each other to sort out the pecking order, to see who's top dog, as you might say, and it comes naturally before you come to blows and hurt each other with fists. Wrestling comes so naturally to man, and any mammal really, that every country around the world has its own form of wrestling. There is something special about it. There's no team effort. It's win or lose, it's down to you. So you take all the glory, and it's a good, clean sport, gentlemanly and traditional, with a vast heritage. And there's I always say it's a birthright for a Cornishman to do the wrestling and pass it on to the next generations. It is unique, and it requires not just strength or size or power, all things being equal, that's useful, but it's one martial art where the smaller man can throw the larger man. So the skill and speed play a big part in it. As a martial art on the street, it is extremely useful because you wear the loose-fitting canvas jacket, and an adversary is always dressed in something, so being able to get a sleeve and a collar or 2 cuffs, whatever, you can quickly come to your man and bring him down to the ground. Well, if it's not on the grass in the sports field like we normally wrestle, if it was an attacker and you were on the concrete pavement or the hard tarmac, you would stun him instantly to throw him in the way we do. Traditionally being handed down, father to son, in that sort of method, where it really suffered was the 2 wars, because there was much wrestling going on before the First War, but so many people were lost in the First World War, in the Great War, and with little more than 20 years until the Second War, and then suddenly you came out the other side of that, and all of a sudden in Cornwall there weren't all the fathers and grandfathers to hand it down and teach. The number was greatly reduced. After the Second World War, a lot of people didn't want to know about fighting in any form. I mean, wrestling's wrestling, it's not really fighting, and the world changed so fast. The women were all out working, and everybody was looking forward then. In the late 40s and the 50s, they were looking forward to modern times and modern sports and whatever. It was motorbikes, speedway, bowling alleys, rock and roll. The world changed so fast, and the youngsters weren't looking back to what they considered to be old-fashioned things, and the Cornish wrestling, that was hundreds of years old, and everybody was looking forward. And of course then the 60s came along, and that was very colourful, and half people don't remember what went on. So it's lucky to survive. I think what kept it going through the 60s was at least 30 wrestlers where it came from Truro Cathedral School, because there was good instruction in there. and they saw it through the 60s. Anytime in history that you look for the written word, somewhere you will find a mention of Cornish and their wrestling. At the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, the Cornish contingent at the battle went into battle under the banner of two wrestlers in a hitch. No name was needed, everybody knew the men of Cornwall were behind it. They were that famed as wrestlers. You sort of knew it was a deep-rooted tradition, and all the old people talked about it. And I mean, as a youngster, I mean, nowadays the young might not have much to do with the old, but then if you tried your hand at the wrestling, and then the young and old, they would all talk to you, and the old boys would come along and give you some advice or offer this, tell you that, or say they'd watched you and they enjoyed it. So it gives everybody a unity in the community link. They all share something in common because they wrestled in their youth. Basically, it's a really good sport when you try it, and that's what's kept it going over all these thousands of years. I love the history of it, I know the history of it, but it's not everybody who's taken part over the years were interested in the culture or the history. It was just another sport. That's what they'd done on the Saturday afternoon, or practicing on the way home when the mine spilled out. They'd pull aside from the track on a patch of grass and they would wrestle with each other. They'd done it for the enjoyment. They weren't thinking about culture or heritage particularly. It is a good, clean, manly sport. A good all-round exercise for youth and man. Keeps you supple and teaches you discipline. You'll never have what it was. It was the national sport, and everybody was mad about it. There's just too much choice. There's 1,000,001 sports now, isn't there? You've got to remember there was no sport in Cornwall. I mean, you're talking about before rugby or football was invented, Although, if you look at hurling, then we probably invented rugby anyway. They've just refined it, haven't they?